Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Male Fertility Podcast. And it's a bit of a different episode this week. It's one that I've been trying to engineer for a while, and I'm so delighted tonight to be joined by Ben Tansley. Ben, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's, mate, our absolute pleasure. And I'm going to, as I said, it's a bit of a different topic, subject matter. And so I'm going to take a different approach. Rather than just going straight in and speaking to you, Ben, just give me a minute because I need to share exactly why we've asked you to be here today. So I'm not going to give anything away of your story just yet, but your story means a lot to me, even though it's nothing to do with fertility. So let me take you back to, so two major things happened. So I got diagnosed as infertile. I had no sperm, and when me and my missus were trying to conceive. So obviously it knocked my ego, my identity as a man, didn't know where I was, a bit lost. And two things happened. So in September 19, I came across Henry Fraser. I don't know have you heard of Henry?
Henry Fraser. That rings a bell, actually. Yeah, if you explain his story a bit, I might know.
So he was a young lad on holiday with his mates in Portugal, and he got paralysed from his neck down. He now does the mouth paintings.
Okay, yeah, I do. Actually, yeah, see him. Yeah, I've seen him on telly, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So I heard about him. I bought his book, and this was like after I'd had the second operation to try and find some sperm and stuff like that, and they're both negative, and I was at the bottom. Now his story did one thing, and that was start setting me on the path to acceptance, and that was September 19. And then it wasn't for me a quick process. I worked through this. May 2020, we're in lockdown, and in that time in between, I'd been digesting a lot of kind of like self-development books, personal improvement, stuff like that. Because there was no other men talking about
No.
infertility, and I felt really alone. But I was getting a lot from these stories. And then one day, it was lockdown. Our clinic had asked us if we'd be willing to be interviewed by the BBC about the impact of lockdown on fertility treatment, because our treatment got shelved when we were about to start it because of the lockdown. And we said, yeah, cool. And they were due to come around about lunchtime. And I was doing some painting in the morning, listening to a podcast called Take Flight, which was like one that I worked through, like literally from episode 1 right through. And
Yeah,
I think
okay.
it was around about episode 47 or something like that from memory. And I hear you. And right, I have to say, right at this point, May 2020, so 3.5 years into this by now for us, I hadn't told a soul,
Yeah.
not any of my best mates or
Right,
anything.
okay. Yeah.
I was struggling, like really struggling. And then, as I said, Henry's story started setting me onto a path, a bit of acceptance about who I was. And then I heard your story, and I turned to my missus and I said, when these guys come over from the BBC, they were going to film us, but obviously we're doing it outside because it was still. I said, I'm going to tell them. I'm going to tell them everything, my whole story. And she was like, thought I was mad because I hadn't told anyone. I'd
Yes.
barely been speaking to her. I was
Yeah.
like, I'm going to do it. And I did. And it was like a pressure valve being released. These poor guys. So the agenda was the effect on lockdown and fertility treatment.
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
there literally going, blah, 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 spilling 3.5 years of pain, grief, trauma, because I had this spark, and this is what you did. So I think Henry's story took me to like the kind of pinnacle, the precipice like of acceptance, but your story then pushed me well over the other side into that,
Yeah.
like firmly into acceptance, but also gave me this drive to do something with it, just like literally there and then. And
Yeah.
bless these guys, they were stood there, what the hell, this isn't what we came for. And as it happens, none of that got into the cut. It was like a tiny little news section, and it wasn't about that because that's not the
No.
agenda, so they cut all that out. But it was what I needed at that time. And
Yeah.
I then spent that night phoning all of my mates, telling them all, and the way in which they received it was just like top drawer. These are guys that hadn't had any issues with their fertility, and I
No.
thought that they would never understand, but they were just good lads. Like the reason
Yeah.
they were my best mates.
Yes.
And then I decided, that was May 2020. So it's like lots of, and I was like, I need to do this further, but it still took me 8 more months to put myself properly out there. I started an Instagram account, and I was like, I'm going to share my story. But it took me 8 months because I was petrified of being trolled, like getting
Yeah.
stick for being a bloke with no sperm. What does that make me? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I eventually wrote the first 2 posts. I had them ready. They were like locked on a private Insta. And then I posted them, and I put my phone into flight mode. I went out for a walk and listened to your episode again.
Oh,
And just to convince me I'd done the right thing, so I was still petrified. And
yeah. Yeah.
it just reignited that drive. I was like, yeah, absolutely, you've done the right thing here. And yeah, I came home, took my phone off flight mode, and it was just mental. Like all the reception of people saying like, finally there's a bloke talking about this. And yeah, then I messaged you and told you,
Yeah.
like, spilt that. You must have been like, what the fuck's going on? This has nothing to do with it. But the whole point is, and this is why I wanted to get you on, is because it doesn't matter what people are going through. Your story was so powerful about, it's all about like growth, acceptance, mindset, and turning adversity into power. And that doesn't mean, in my case, for example, starting an Instagram with a silly name and sharing openly and publicly. If any guys are listening to this, and you are, and you will be just as inspired by Ben's story, it's what is right for you. And that could just be opening up to your best mates or someone else in your family. And that could be literally what is right for you. So,
Yeah.
as I said, I'm going to try and keep this short. This is going into 6 minutes now, but I
Yeah,
just
no,
wanted to get that across
yeah.
because it was, I don't think it's over exaggerating if I was saying it was life changing for me. So no pressure.
No.
Over to you.
It's amazing to hear though, just because you remember the message and I read it and we chatted about it, but you never really know the true impact. You hear a little bit, but so to hear you talk about it with such passion and stuff is it's rewarding for me. Like I always say, like no matter what you're going through, when you talk about it and people buy into it or it stems off, you just never know you're going to help, and
Yeah,
it's a catalyst for loads of things. Yeah, it's nice,
absolutely.
and it gives purpose to like my injury to know that you've now created this. There's, like I said, there's meaning in everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just literally remembered something actually as we were chatting. I remember when we were starting to plan our podcast, Kieran and I, it took us 10 months to get it going because we have no background in this. But he said, write a list of 3 people you want to get on, and you were one of mine.
Right.
And
Okay.
yeah, it wasn't that you were hard to get on. It was we were waiting for the right time where, because
Yeah.
the first few series had very specific kind of themes. But
Yeah.
so yeah, I'm delighted, absolutely delighted that you're finally here. So, and without further ado, people are probably like, "God, get on with it. Let's hear his story then."
Yeah.
And so let's take people back to 2017 and what happened to you, or for you, I should say. Then, Ben.
Yeah. So in sort of 2017, I was, like I always say, like probably a superhero in my kids' eyes. I was a young dad, had 2 young children, successful business. Life was pretty good. Been quite athletic my whole life, boxed, and just always one of them lads with self belief. Brought up a bit of a man's man by my dad, 2 brothers, and I was just confident. I had everything going for me, really. And one day we went out on a family day out, me and my partner at the time. And both kids, I had my son on the back of a motorbike. We'd been for a day, we'd been down the coast, had some food. And just on the way home, another motorcycle, the lad I actually knew, was a member of the gym. He'd actually came up, brought him dinner that day. So came around the car too fast, didn't really see us in front of it. Hit us from behind and knocked us off. And yeah, I broke my back. I can remember laying on the actual road. The lady was
Wow.
there and the first lady on the scene type thing. She wasn't a paramedic, but she was first aid trained type thing. And I asked her to take my helmet off at first, and she said no, not taking it off. I think I asked a few times, got quite aggressive. She didn't take off, which I'm grateful for. And then I asked her to uncross my legs. I said, "Look, can you uncross my legs?" And she said, "They're not crossed." And I knew from that moment, I said, "Oh, I've broken my back." And she said, "I can't answer that." But yeah, from there, I got airlifted to Addenbrooke's Hospital. And basically, I didn't find out for 2, 3 weeks what had actually happened. I was in and out of consciousness, but I'd broken my back around T4 level. So it was around about nipple height. And yeah, I mean, they told me that I would never walk again. Sat my family down and just said, "Look, unfortunately, your son is never going to be able to stand." And that was me. Paralyzed. I've gone from someone who could run to Africa if you want me to, stuck to a bed and couldn't actually move. I was broken. Yeah, I mean, it was obviously quite a journey to finding that point out. But yeah, it was a crazy wake up, really.
Yeah, man. First of all, thanks for coming on, Ben. And thanks for sharing that, because it must be quite traumatic to, you've probably told it a few times now, to keep saying it or maybe keep reliving it. I can imagine it's tough, even though you are doing great work with it. I really appreciate you sharing it with the listeners. What was when you came to and was with it, like you said, you were in and out of consciousness a bit for those first few weeks. What was your first emotional response? Can you remember it?
I can remember going in and out of consciousness. So I'd wake up and there'd be someone standing there, and I'd just be like a bit drowsy. Then I'd fall asleep, and then someone else would be there. So the first definitely couple of weeks were like just in and out. Like I can't remember any real moments of consciousness. Really, I was broken. I had a 10-hour operation. They put metal rods all down my back, and I remember being in so much pain. The main thing was because it literally affects everything from below that level of injury. So I couldn't wee, I couldn't poo, and I was so constipated, like I just couldn't. They couldn't get it out, so they was like filling me with laxative. I think it was like 9 days I didn't go to the toilet for, and that was so painful, so painful. And I got through all that. But my first sort of moment, which I remember being awake, was obviously my first question was Jude okay, my son, and he was fine. He had a couple of nights in hospital, like bumps and bruises. But as soon as I knew he was fine, I was just like accepted it. Generally, haven't had a down day about the whole thing. Like I haven't even bothered me just because he was fine. My next sort of thought was the lad who hit me. He was in a similar friendship group to us and knew a lot of my friends, so I obviously knew him. And his dad actually committed suicide when he was quite young. So my instant thought was like, is he okay? There's a lot to deal with. You lost your dad and now paralyzed one of your friends type thing. So I called him and just said, look, are you okay? And he was like, yeah, I'm okay. How are you? And I said, I think I'm paralyzed. I don't think I'm coming back from this. And at that point, I didn't know. And I just said, look, he didn't do it on purpose. I know he didn't set out that day to paralyze me. It was just a freak accident. So look, don't be down. It is what it is type thing. So I just had this super ability to accept it. And I still don't know why. I think everything builds. I live my life. Everything happens to a reason. And I'm very good at piecing life together. When things happen and I can't work out why, it always sticks in my head. And then something will happen. I'll be like, oh, okay, I know where that happened so many years ago. Even to this point, this podcast, like that is stemmed from that. And it just pieces the puzzles together. And you could probably tell me how many people you've helped. And you just think, if one didn't happen, the other wouldn't happen. I look at life as a giant interlinked of spiders web. Like every little thing interacts with everyone, and it's amazing how it works out.
Yeah. It's a really important thing you said there with trying to find the meaning in something, because then you said the word years down, like the line type thing, and because sometimes that answer I think doesn't present itself at the time, but it could take a long time, and sometimes it might feel that things are just absolutely unfair, and I'm going through things or have been through things that I'm still trying to find the meaning of, but I trust that it probably is there somewhere and that I'll find it. And like you said, that those pieces will interlink and fall into place at some point. But sometimes, and I think this is again so key for the part of the conversation, is that sometimes you can't make sense of it in the moment.
No, and I think sometimes things will happen to me or you or generally always about us. Me having an accident might not have been about me. It might have been actually about you starting your process. I always like to think like there could be someone you've helped along the line that does end up going and adopting a child, and that child grows up and ends up being the president of the country and stops the world war. Always said trust the process, and like you said, that moment of acceptance you had, like you'd bottled it up for so many years and struggled with it. I think you can never deal with a problem or move on from it until you actually fully accept it. Sometimes you think you've accepted it and you might have done it, but when you fully accept it, that is when you actually take that leap forward. I think, and any time before that, you're actually stuck still in that past. And same with me, if I hadn't have accepted my injury, I'm still stuck thinking about what I used to be or where I was and who I was. I'm not moving on, I'm not living. And that is the power of acceptance.
Yeah, it's an incredible mindset to have. I think 99.9% of the world would take such a knock from that. And it would take time, how you've spoken in terms of just gratitude for the fact that your son was all right, the guy who hit you was all right, so everything's all right. Especially that early, like in the whole thing that's happened, the journey, experience, whatever you want to call it. It's an incredible mindset to have. Do you think there's anything in your life that occurred to make you like that? Did you experience anything beforehand that kind of thought things could be worse? So it's giving you that kind of mindset, positive mindset.
Yeah, I think everything. Like, I generally always say that accident was always going to happen. That was just always going to be part of my story.
Yeah.
So everything leading up to that was to set me up to be this point. Like, it's almost I have these massive conversations with ChatGPT at the minute, like about free will. Does free will exist, and where does it come from? And I've had a few things happen recently from I never was religious or anything like that, but just a few things happened which I was like, religion, God, whatever. So I've been really deep diving into this thing. And I just think everything in my life was setting me up to deal with it in that way. There was a couple of key things that always stood out to me, because I've always said, like, everything happens for a reason. Something good always comes from something bad. And I've always understood that life is short. I've
Mm.
always said life don't really begin until you're 20. Everything before that is you're at school, you're controlled by your parents, rules, regulations. So you turn 20, you do what you like. And then I always used to tell myself, actually, you get to 60, then you're on a bit of a wind down anyway. So I always used to tell myself, like, I've got 40 years to do what I want. And I can just remember being a young kid at, I think it was a funeral of one of my mum's friends, probably one of the first funerals I went to. And I've always been quite observant. I like to observe people life, and I just watch how people are. And I think she had two brothers, or someone there had two brothers, and they hadn't spoken for a very long time. And I see them at the bar having a beer together, like just chatting away. And I can remember sitting there thinking, there's all this misery on this bad day, but yet there's some good to come from this lady passing away. Like, that's a good thing. And I just think I could start to cherry pick good things from every bad situation. And that mindset of believing that something good comes from it forces you to look for the positives. If I didn't have that mindset, something bad can really happen, and I can pull a positive from it, even if that doesn't really link like that. If it does in my head, it just makes me look for the good rather than the bad. And I think even boxing, spent my youth playing football. Boxing was a bit of a family sport, but I started boxing seriously when I was like probably 13 until I was like 19. And I think had I continued to play football, I probably wouldn't have dealt with injury in the same way, because like you can have a game of football, play bad yourself, but still win. Whereas boxing is such an individual sport, you get out of boxing what you put into boxing. If you don't train hard, that's a horrible place to be when you're out of breath and someone's trying to punch you in the face. You have to work hard, and it's all on you at the end of the day. So that was the same with walking. Nobody was actually ever going to make me walk other than me. I had to put that effort in, and I think it's why I enjoyed it. It was almost like I've always been the same. If someone says you can't do something, I'm like, watch me. I like to prove people wrong. I like to just show that I can actually do stuff. So for me, that was like the biggest challenge I was ever going to have. You're never going to walk. But I was like, okay. And don't get me wrong, had I not had any hope to do that, up until the point I could wiggle my toe, I'd accepted, all right, I'm not bothered. I'm never going to walk, never going to stand. I'll be the best version of me in a wheelchair. That was my outlook. I was ringing the athletics commission to try book myself into athletics competitions whilst I was still strapped to the bed. Like, they contacted me and was like, oh, how long have you actually been paralyzed? And I said 3 weeks. And she's like, oh, you've been out of hospital 3 weeks. I said, no, I'm still strapped to the hospital bed. And she was like, I've never had anyone applying for a disabled athletics meeting whilst they're still strapped to bed. And I was like, look, I've just got to get cracking. But then from the moment I could wiggle my toe, I had hope that there was a chance I could do something. So I was like, that was like a red rag to a bull. I was like, watch me. And I've been extremely lucky. Don't get me wrong, I've worked very hard. But yeah, to answer the question, I just think life set me up to do that. It's just, I believe it to that smallest detail. Everything happens to a reason. It's just a bigger part of the global story.
This podcast is sponsored by Exceed Health. Exceed understand how vital it is to stay ahead of the game with your fertility. Their at-home sperm tests show exactly where you're starting from. No NHS queues, no pricey clinics, no stress. You don't even have to send a sample through the post. By harnessing your phone's camera with the Exceed device, you can record a video of your semen for the app to analyze in minutes. Doctors are just a message or free video call away with personalized tips to boost your motile count. Get 15% off today by visiting exceedhealth.com with discount code MFP15. That's MFP15.
That is
Yeah.
incredible. What an answer. Thank you, Ben. Wow. Yeah, it's like that. That's brilliant. About like, how long? 3 weeks. 3 weeks since my accident. That's wow. I bet she tells people about that all the time. I bet
Yeah,
that's like
maybe, I don't know, but yeah,
that's a
again,
dinner
you know
table
that
topic for her.
exactly, and that inspires probably others. It's just it's crazy how the world works. Just the other week, even like I was driving home in traffic, and I stopped to let a man cross the road, and I watched him walk down the road down the high street, and I thought, I wonder how many people he interacts with on his walk home now. Like, had I not stopped and he had to wait there for another 5 minutes, he would have interacted with a completely different set of people. Everyone's lives interacts with everyone's, and it just pushes you down a different path, like even by the
Yeah.
minute. And it
Oh,
amazes me when I
yeah.
look at that.
Like sliding
Uh,
doors
yeah,
moments.
type thing. And I
Yeah.
think that mindset of just trusting that as part of a bigger picture has
Hmm.
been my superpower.
Yeah. I often
It,
think that if I'm like delayed on a journey or something, I always think I don't know what might have happened at the other end if I was on time, or like I could have, yeah, anything could have happened. That goes through my mind. Is oh, you don't know what this is for, so just can't do it. And it comes down to that control aspect, which I'm going to come on to, funnily enough. But
yeah,
I want to. You said something about boxing, like you get back what you put in. But I think that's so true of life, isn't it? Like you, the energy you put in and where to, then is what you get back. And you putting that into positivity, mindset, control.
everything's about perspective, isn't it? If you're negative with yourself, your thoughts, and down the dumps, then you only look and feel for the negative things. But if you can actually just try be positive, then you know your perspective on life is a little bit different. But I think any is you can clearly see effort outperforms talent any day of the week. Talent's great, but if you don't put the effort in with it, someone over a long period of time who is consistent with effort always does better. I'm still very strong in the gym, and I can go in and I can lift big weights, but I'm never really lean unless I'm consistent. And those kids who just put in the work every day, a little bit here, and then over a long period of time, they're always going to do better.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, yeah, it's great analogies that, like, and everything you say, and I love it because that's what I said at the outset. There's so much that can be applied to any aspect of life, and no matter what you're going through. Yeah, thank you. And I want to touch upon, as you've alluded to so far. So you're in hospital, and you've got the doctor saying you ain't going to walk again. They've sat your family down to tell them, and you've given us a little spoiler. So what did that fire up inside of you, and what have you done with that? What did that journey look like for you?
Yeah, over the course of 3-4 weeks, maybe, because they have to have certain people what deliver that news to you. I think they're not allowed to just have any random nurse come in and tell you that you're never going to walk again, because you can imagine some people take it really bad. But I cherry picked enough information from doctors, nurses to come to that conclusion. That is what was going to happen. But the lady that actually operated on me, she went on holiday for 2 weeks after she'd done the operation. So she came in to see how I was. And that was my brother who actually asked and said, is he ever going to walk again? And she said, no. As soon as she said it, my stomach went. I was like, whoa, that is true. And it's weird how you accept the worst, but you then hope for the best type thing. I went on a bit of a journey of just, let's just see what we can do. For me, though, when you said about, and this is from a different point of view, where you said your identity of you thought your friends wouldn't see you as a man, or like where you'd be that big of feeling like that. For me, that was the biggest thing to deal with myself. Like my whole life, I've been brought up to be, like I say, a man's man. Like my physical ability was what kind of was me. I could believe I could do anything. I was confident. So my whole image was based around my physical self, really. And all of a sudden, that had just been taken away. I used to just say to him, I feel like a wounded lion. I'm this person, but I've just lost what made me. And you have to then realize, like, you reinvent yourself, and which I did. And this is where the podcast and the Instagram kind of took off really well, and I documented it. And I didn't do that on purpose at the time. That was just naturally happened. But now I look back, that was me reinventing myself. I came to this point of still being not an alpha male, but a powerful kind of person, but from a point of positivity and influence. So I can still feel that I'm important, but from a completely different aspect. And that was my biggest kind of internal challenge, the way I see myself. Because I can remember going back to hospital like days, like I can remember the first sort of day I was really laid by myself in the hospital, and I had the curtains around me, and I'm not a negative person, but I laid there and just thought stupid things like, wow, like how am I ever going to save the kids if the house set on fire? Or how am I going to protect? Like I felt like a protector all the time. It was just, that was my job role. I was a dad, I was a young dad. And then I thought, I'm never going to get to walk my daughter down the aisle. And I sobbed my eyes out. I never cried as an adult, blood my eyes out. And then I thought, you can't worry about this stuff because you don't even know what's going to happen. And that was just the way I see myself was my biggest internal kind of battle. So yeah, I can relate with you feeling like less of a man because of it, but you're not. It's like strength is one thing, strength is another thing. And it's a lot of the time we're harder on ourselves than anyone's ever going to be.
We want to tell you about Impril, the unique supplement for conception, which is recommended by fertility specialists for both men and women. We know that poor nutrition is one of the leading causes of infertility, but we are also aware that it's practically impossible to maintain a diet that's perfectly balanced, especially for conception. Choosing the right supplement can be confusing. Many multivitamins contain strong antioxidants, which may actually damage sperm quality. Impril is made from activated micronutrients, which help every cell within the human body, from the biggest, the egg, to the smallest, the sperm. These micronutrients have been clinically proven to significantly improve live birth rates for men and women who have previously been struggling to get pregnant. You can find out more and hear from couples who have used Impril by visiting fertilityfamily.co.uk. If you decide this is for you, there's a 10% discount just for our listeners. So make a note of the code MF Podcasts 10. That's capital M, capital F, podcast, all in lowercase, 10.
Yeah, it's what you've said there, like echoes with me as well in terms of when I got my diagnosis. A long time I questioned my identity, like Shaun's already mentioned. Like it was a real, who am I? What does this make me now as an individual? But there was that you mentioned, like the moment where you say you've got to get on with it, and it took me a long time to get to that point, real low lows. But that change in my mindset to the fact of actually I'm in more control than I perceive myself to be, and actually making those lifestyle changes that could positively affect my health and hopefully my fertility and stuff like that. Me and Shaun have talked about this recently, like the importance of a positive mindset is so underrated, I believe. Literally, like within a day, my world changed when I sat there and I was like, I've got to do something about this myself because no one else is going to do it for me.
That's right.
And what you've just said there just takes me back to that moment. It is understanding that you're in more control than you think you are. In any situation that's thrown at you, take time to process it. Life can beat you down. Like it can be rough, as I'm sure we can
life
all...
constantly tries to beat you down. If there's one thing, it's another thing. Like I think the key to a happy life is being able to adjust your sails as such. You have to pivot because if it's not one thing, it's another thing. You go through breakups, you lose jobs. Like life is a constant need to just adjust. But it's when you don't adjust, you get the problems. You're stuck there.
Yeah, definitely. But it's refreshing to hear like your situation is completely different to mine and Shaun's.
You
It's the same.
said that. I was going to, sorry to interrupt, but like from a fertility point of view, like most people are paralyzed, end up being fertile because it affects everything from below your waist. So there was a time in hospital I didn't know whether I'd ever be able to wee myself. I didn't know whether I'd ever be able to poo myself. I didn't know whether my dick was going to work. Like you didn't know. Like I was totally paralyzed, and I'm lucky. I catheterized for about a year and a half, but then my bladder came back so I can actually wee normal. But in terms of like ejaculation and stuff, like I can remember my first night back out of like hospital, I checked myself out, was with my girlfriend, and I was like, I'd been getting like sporadic, is it gonna work? I don't know. And they do tell you like there's probably not a chance you're never gonna have kids again. And we checked into a hospital, into a hotel, and luckily I could get it to work and we could do it. But I couldn't finish. I generally just couldn't finish. And I didn't come for maybe 3.5 years, like if not a little bit longer. Like I could have sex, I could have sex for ages, but I just couldn't finish.
Yeah.
And it was sometimes not nice because I just felt like she felt I was a bit of a less of a man for not being able to do it. So I totally understand that feeling. And it wasn't until I went to my first athletics competition, and I got talking to some lads there in a wheelchair, and it just come up, and I said, "Oh, it's annoying because some of them can't even have sex. Like some of them have to have mechanical, like penises installed, and there's loads of different contraptions for it." And it just come up as a topic, and I said, "Oh, it's annoying sometimes that I can't finish. I feel like I'm going to finish." And you get that same thing, but I just don't get that final bit. It's like she doesn't like it type thing. And one of them said, "Oh, have you tried this?" It was called a Vibrect or something. It's like a male kind of penis massager. It was like a set of hair straighteners with vibrating pads on. And I said, "No, and like never seen it." And he was like, "Oh, I hadn't come for ages till you use this, done it in seconds." And I was like, I'm ordering one. And got it from the States, cost me about 400 quid. And I kid you not, from the first time I put that on there, seconds. I was like, wow, fucking hell. There we go. And it was crazy after 3.5 years. But I used that for a while, and then all of a sudden it started doing its thing. But I totally understand the infertile bit, yeah.
It sounded like you had to retrain your body. God, that must be because they said that to you, the double whammy. If you're never going to walk again, and you're likely to never be able to have children again. So
Yeah.
that is, it's bam, life-changing news. Bam, life-changing news.
Yeah. For me, the infertile bit wasn't as important for me because I had 2 children. I could imagine how that would be if I had no children. And I've spoke to many 18, 19-year-old lads who are paralyzed and they get that information. It's tough. It's very tough. But yeah, I was very fortunate. I had 2 kids. And they did tell me though there's ways like they can extract it, even though you've got it there, they can cut your testicles apart, how they do it. So IVF. So there's obviously means and ways from it, from me being paralyzed at the time.
Yeah, and I had my balls cut open, and I could say, the £400 machine from America sounds a lot more appealing. You mentioned there, you speak to young guys, and I remember that was something I think that was really inspired me to think I need to help others. Because I remember you talking to guys that it's just happened to. So when you are talking to someone who's facing a new reality, and I think this does apply across the board, whether it is an injury or fertility related stuff on the other side of an injury, but what kind of advice do you give in that situation when it is, there's no underplaying it? Like you're speaking to someone who's got a life-changing situation.
Yeah, I mean, you really have to assess how they're taking it, really. Like, I've met kids who take it really well, and I've met kids who struggle to accept it. But the key message to them is always there is still a life after these injuries. Just because you don't feel you can do something now, like you can, you can pretty much do anything. Sometimes things are going to be a lot harder, and life is a struggle, but there's still a life to live. And I just always try to push that acceptance. Just look, you can't keep saying, "But I used to do this and I used to do that." You have to accept your life is going to be different. And some of them who have got incomplete spinal cord injuries, I'm like, look, you will get something back. Try your hardest to get this. And then some who have complete spinal cord injuries with no hope at all, I'm like, you have to just accept this is where you're at. And anything's possible. It's tough. It's a hard thing. I was 32 and I dealt with it because I had 32 years of doing absolutely anything I wanted. Like, I've lived a life. I'm extremely happy. I've done anything I wanted, really. Where someone who's 16, 17, 18, like, they've not had a life. It's tough. And like you say, everyone's story is slightly different. But I'm yet to find anyone who hasn't dealt with it. Some of them deal with it in a month. Some of them deal with it in 2 years. When you look back, you see them actually going out and doing things with their friends. You think they do accept it. Just everyone takes a little bit of time.
Again, just a great life lesson. We're not racing against anyone else other than ourselves, and just take it at your own pace and don't force it. I think is a really important thing. It's like I mentioned, like Henry's book, and then listen to you. That those things found me when I needed it, when I was ready. I could have picked that book up a year before and discarded it, going, I'm never going to accept this or whatever. But it was when I was obviously, and like you said, when you're looking for something, you find it.
Yeah.
And I obviously was. I can't remember what made me like listened to that book, but then that started everything. Like I said, then I went down that journey of rediscovery, really, and of personal development, and it's just all, it was like leaving breadcrumbs as to how other people deal with stuff, and taking bits that were good from them and applying it to myself. And that's the key thing here, is that it's about kind of what we try and do here on the pod is to give people a toolbox, and it's not every tool is going to be relevant for that moment, but you've got it there, and at one point you can take it out and use it, and
it
that's
clicks.
the
You just think, exactly. I'm actually Friday. They say God's time is never late, don't they? That's what I was going to say to you there. But on Friday, I'm going with a young lad, a friend of mine's son. He's 12, and he's just got over cancer, and he's going on Friday to ring the bell to say he's cancer free. I chatted to his dad today, and this religious kind of, is there a God, got me questioning all this was due to him. A couple of things happened, and I just thought there's definitely someone listening. And when I first went to see Jake, the innocence of it, like he's 12 years old, he was so happy and just took it on the chin, but he didn't understand it. It's just an innocence to it. And when I look at strength, and I think that little boy at 12 years old, he had to go to school, he'd lost all his hair, and he was been so poorly. That's like true strength because he's young. But the innocence of it just shows that if you don't let it consume you and over pay much thought to it, anything's possible. And there was a stage his dad probably went months talk. They actually at the 12 years old they had to sit him down and say, "You're never going to have children." I think he is now classed as infertile because he had to have 2 rounds of chemo. Now, how does a 12-year-old boy deal with that? And you just think it's a crazy what people have to go through, even for his parents. And it's a proud moment to go watch him Friday ring the bell, and he's took that on the chin like a proper little soldier. There's always someone worse off dealing with something that's crazy.
What absolute hero. And you mentioned the word strength, in his case, like the kind of the mind side of things, mindset. You've gone on to do some incredible physical feats that, quite frankly, most able-bodied people would struggle to do. Tell us about some of those. And this is not like, and let's not forget you were told you wouldn't walk. So let's come on to some of the other things that you've done now.
I think the most recent one, which kind of got a bit of traction, was I've done the Red Bull 400, which is, so in the winter you have the big downhill ski slopes what they jump off. But in the summer there's obviously no snow, so the Red Bull do races up them. It's like a 400-meter race up a ski slope, and they asked me to be the first lad with a spinal cord injury to do that. And I think it took me an hour to do it in the end. It was pretty tough. But I like all these sort of crazy, stupid challenges I put myself through. I don't like to train for them because I just still have that belief that I can do anything. And it always gets me and bites me in the ass halfway up where you're like, I wish I'd have done this. But I have this weird thing where I love that internal battle. Like I was trying to explain, I don't know if everyone gets it, but I always have that voice which is, oh, you need to stop, you're hurting yourself, or you can't do this. And I just think your body's main goal is to always protect yourself. So when your brain is telling you that, just wants you to stop from a point of protection, then I get that little voice is, nah, it's lying to you. Don't listen to it. Don't. The longer I have that battle for, the bigger the reward at the end. And I just love getting to the end. Red Bull have the most amazing charity called Wings for Life. It's 100% backed by Red Bull, so all donations go into spinal research, and their sole purpose is to solve the problem. It's such a cool brand to be part of, and they get you to do some cool things actually.
Wow.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
and Jude did that with you as well, didn't he? Your
He's
son?
done it. He's done most things with me, really. Like from a
Amazing.
kid, I come out of hospital on the Friday, still very broken, and me and Jude done a park run on the Saturday. And I forget, it took me about an hour and a half, and I was so sore for about a week after because the most I'd pushed was about 5 meters, and we came out and done this park run just for me to prove Dad was still Dad. But that broke me. But he's done it all with me, really. He's a good lad, and now he's 6'4", about 110 kilos. He's massive.
Good lad.
That's amazing.
I saw the pictures of you going up together, and it's just incredible. That park run in your chair, that wasn't the only thing you did not long after, was it?
No, I've done the Berlin Marathon as well. We've done that for charity, and again, I didn't train for that. I got my best friend Josh to do it with me in a wheelchair as well, because he's got quite a big social media following. So I was like, look, if I can get him involved, we'll raise more money. And he trained like hell. Like he literally lived in a wheelchair for 6 weeks, was training with David Weir and in the gym, like trained like a beast. And I was kayaking and doing all sorts of what was not related to pushing in a wheelchair. And we got about 5 miles into that, and I was like, mate, this is tough. And yeah, that was another moment where I was like, definitely should have trained a bit for this.
One of our other podcast guests is doing 39 marathons in 39 consecutive weeks in 39 different counties in the UK to raise awareness for miscarriage.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've both agreed to take part in the counties where we live.
Yeah.
And just before we came on, actually, my missus said to me, "Do you want to do what they call it? Do you want to do a high rocks? Is it high rocks?" And I was like, "That's my first." And it's what it comes back to what you said, Tano. The first voice, the comfort voice, and I literally went, "Not really. Why'd you ask?"
Yes, right.
She said, "Oh, you can do it. You do it as a team, and you can do it as mixed." And I was like, "Tell me more about it and what do you do?" And I was like, "Yeah." I just said, "Yeah. Do you know what? Let's do it. Let's go for it."
Yeah. I think the reward at the end is always best, isn't it? And the harder something is, and the more you don't want to do it, the higher that buzz is at the end, and that's what you live for, really.
There's a lot to be said to do at least one hard thing a day, something that pushes you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to get in an ice bath every day, but I like to do it 2 or 3 times a week. But then I like to run. Oh, I'm running now again. And then I like to go to the gym. So it's at least one thing a day. Because I found, obviously, when I did things like ice baths, like I'd stand looking over it thinking, oh, fuck, I've got to get in this again.
Talk to her for 10 minutes. I generally used to do it. Honestly, I would talk to her for 10, 15 minutes to get in there for 2. Like, it's just a proper mental challenge.
What I found was that if I do it only 3 times a week, I'm like, you're in this for 5 minutes, you do it 3 times a week, just get in. And I just find it easier. So I just break up what's hard over the week.
Yes, right.
But each day I do something that pushes me in some way. Yeah, it's good for your mental health, good for your self-esteem, your confidence. It's just good for you.
There's little 0.1% every day.
Yeah.
Every year, that's like 36%. That's a bit of maths for me. Maths was never my strong point. But Ben, this has been incredible. This is everything that I knew it would be. And I'm so grateful because I know someone will make a change as a result of this. And yeah, it's an absolute honour to have you on to share your incredible story. So thank you.
Like I said, that ripple effect. It's just like anything you do on a daily basis and interact with people, it ripples, and you don't know where it ripples, and you don't know how it affects people. Just even if from my accident this was the only thing to stem from it, then that's a great thing. And the same from you boys. You've done this podcast, and I'm sure you get messages, and you help a number of people, and then they might stem to go on, and it just, you never know actually what good it does. So yeah, keep up the good work.
Thank you for causing those ripples, because like you said, they're going further out than you could ever know. Even when you think that they've slowed down into the distance, they're still going, and that's out there forever. This story is going to change people's lives for a long time to come.
Thanks for listening. If you found value in today's conversation, please follow the show and share with someone who might benefit.